They thought they knew every name in the stars, every world catalogued, every people conquered, every voice that dared to rise against the council silenced. But there was one name they whispered in fear, one they never dared to speak aloud, a name buried so deep in their archives that even their machines trembled to retrieve it. Earth. They called it a forgotten world, an accident of history. But when the council uncovered humanity's true name, they realized too late that it was never just a planet. It was a warning, a legacy forged in fire, in war, in defiance that no empire could tame. And now, with the truth unsealed, the galaxy itself seemed to recoil. Fleets hesitated. Leaders stammered. Entire civilizations felt the chill of something ancient, something unbreakable stirring in the dark. Because humanity does not bow, humanity does not forget. Humanity becomes the storm. The question that froze the council still echoes across the stars. What happens when the galaxy remembers Earth? The day began like any other on Earth. Captain Elias Kalin woke before dawn, the sky over New Avalon still cloaked in a bruised indigo. He sat on the edge of his narrow bunk, boots in hand, listening to the faint hum of the city beyond his window. Air cars drifted through mist, ferrying workers to factories and academies. Somewhere, a street vendor's radio crackled with old Terran music, a relic from centuries past. To anyone else, Elias was just another officer in Earth's Defense Corps. His job was routine: patrols, training exercises, the endless paperwork of a military that hadn't fought a true war in over 2 generations. Humanity had become a quiet people. The great struggles of old, written into history books, sealed into museums, spoken of only on anniversaries. Children grew up believing the stars beyond Sol were silent, unclaimed, harmless. But Elias knew better. He carried the stories of his grandmother, a woman who had fought in the last border conflict against raiders from beyond Pluto. She spoke of shadows in the void, ships that didn't belong to Earth, voices on the comms that carried no human tongue. No one believed her warnings then. Even now, they dismissed her accounts as the paranoia of an aging soldier. Elias never did. His life was ordinary on the surface. Early runs through the training yard, lectures at the academy, a quiet meal with his sister and her children. But in the stillness of night, he'd pore over the old records she left him, names of systems marked classified, faded transcripts with half-erased alien glyphs, all leading to one truth: humanity's history wasn't as quiet as the council wanted them to believe. And then came the broadcast. It happened just after midday when Elias was running combat drills with a group of cadets. Every channel, every device, every frequency across the planet froze. A single voice, cold and distorted, poured from speakers and screens. The Council of Worlds recognizes Earth. The human name has been found. The record cannot be erased. No one understood at first. The cadets looked to Elias, confused, waiting for his orders. Civilians across New Avalon crowded in plazas, staring at the giant holoscreens as the alien voice reverberated. A storm of static followed, then silence. And yet the silence was worse than the voice. That night, reports came flooding in. Strange fleets moving at the edge of known space, colonies on Mars receiving encrypted transmissions they couldn't decode, supply convoys vanishing into dark corridors between stars. The news anchors dismissed it as interference, as rumor. The government said nothing. But Elias felt the same chill his grandmother once described, the sense of eyes watching from the void. Ordinary life was unraveling. The neighbors who once waved in the morning now whispered about ancient wars, about why the council had spoken Earth's name. Children who once played in the streets now clutched their parents' hands, sensing a fear no one wanted to name. And in his heart, Elias knew this was only the beginning. Humanity was not forgotten. They had been hidden, buried. suppressed by powers that did not want the galaxy to remember them. The Council's broadcast had not been a recognition. It had been a warning. Because in the moment their name was spoken, the galaxy trembled. And if the Council feared Earth's name, Elias could only wonder what was coming next. What secret did humanity carry that could shake empires? What shadow waited, watching for humanity to rise? The days after the broadcast were chaos. Elias barely slept. Each morning he walked through New Avalon's academy halls, watching cadets who once joked during drills now train with grim determination. Their laughter had gone. Their eyes carried the unease of a generation that sensed history had just turned against them. And above it all, orbiting satellites filled the sky with warnings. Unknown signals. Ships moving at speeds that defied human understanding. Shadows on long-range scanners that flickered in and out of existence. The Council was not coming with diplomats. They were coming with chains. The first fleet appeared without warning. It was not one of Earth's. Humanity had only a modest defense force, frigates and patrol cruisers meant to guard colonies and asteroid mining routes. The ships that dropped out of faster than light were nothing like them. They were massive, jagged silhouettes blotting out the stars, their hulls alive with sickly blue light. Thousands of alien signatures poured into the solar system, tight formations moving with military precision. The message followed. Humanity has been named. The Council will contain its voice before it spreads. Elias was called to the command chamber within the hour. Admirals, politicians, and scientists sat in uneasy silence around the central holotable. The fleet above Jupiter burned across the projection, an ocean of enemy steel closing on Earth. "We cannot fight this," one politician muttered, hands shaking. "We surrender, petition for integration. If we kneel, they may let us live." The admirals said nothing. Elias watched their silence stretch, and something inside him snapped. "Live as what?" Elias demanded. "Subjects? Slaves? You think they came here to negotiate? No. They came because they fear us. Because they buried us once and now we've been remembered." The chamber went still. No one denied it. No one could. It was Admiral Thorne, grizzled and pale-eyed, who finally spoke. "What would you have us do, Captain? They outgun us 100 to 1. Their ships dwarf ours. Their weapons cut through plasma shields like paper. This is no war. It is extermination." Elias stared at the holotable, at the burning blue icons of the Council fleet, and felt the weight of his grandmother's stories pressing down on him. Humanity had faced the impossible before. They had survived not because they were stronger, but because they were different. "We don't match them ship for ship," Elias said slowly. "We make them fight on our terms." Within hours, Earth's defense fleet scattered. Not to meet the enemy head-on, that would have been suicide, but to vanish into the asteroid belt, to hide within Jupiter's storms, to slip into the shadows of Saturn's rings. 1,000 small, desperate movements, invisible to the naked eye. The Council fleet swept forward expecting resistance at Earth's orbit. Instead, they found silence. No human warships, no defenses rising to meet them. They moved closer. And that was when the first trap was sprung. A mining station abandoned decades ago on the edge of Ceres lit up with false transmissions, broadcasting the chatter of a fleet that did not exist. Council ships moved to intercept and triggered buried charges. The explosion ripped through their formation, scattering debris across the void. It wasn't enough to destroy the fleet, but it was enough to slow them. Then came the second trap. As they regrouped, human patrol craft, ships barely worthy of the title, darted out of asteroid shadows, scattering reflective chaff that turned the Council's sensors into chaos. The aliens unleashed their weapons, but their shots struck only rocks and echoes. The humans were gone before the enemy could lock on. Each strike was small, each ambush a pinprick against a colossus. But together, they became something else. Confusion. The Council was built for overwhelming dominance, for fleets that crushed resistance before it began. They had never been bled slowly, never been forced to fight an enemy that vanished like smoke, only to cut them from the shadows. Elias watched it unfold from the command deck of the Resolute. His ship was smaller than most Council frigates, its weapons outdated, its shields patched with spare parts. Yet from its bridge he coordinated dozens of micro-attacks, weaving chaos into strategy. 3 ships at Europa's shadow, his tactical officer whispered. They're breaking formation to pursue. Elias's jaw tightened. Let them chase. Signal Squadron 9 to fall back toward Jupiter's red spot, then detonate the charges. Moments later, the storm of Jupiter itself became a weapon. Charges planted in its upper atmosphere ignited, creating plasma eruptions that lashed across the pursuing Council ships. Their shields flared, their hulls screamed, and one vanished entirely into the hurricane below. Cheers broke across the bridge. For the first time in days, Elias saw his crew smile, but the joy was brief. Because for every alien ship destroyed, 10 more pressed forward. And as they adapted to humanity's tricks, their countermeasures grew sharper. Mines were detected before they could detonate. Decoys were ignored. Ambushes were anticipated. The storm was turning against them. 3 weeks into the siege, Earth itself burned. Council bombardments struck at orbital stations, obliterating shipyards and defense platforms. New Avalon was spared only by distance, but entire colonies, Titan, Ganymede, the outposts on Neptune's moons, fell silent, crushed beneath alien fire. Elias watched the casualty reports until the numbers blurred together. It wasn't just war, it was erasure. Still, humanity refused to surrender. Resistance cells formed across every colony, sabotaging Council supply lines. Civilian freighters were stripped into makeshift warships. Every scrapyard became an arsenal. Every factory shifted to weapons production. Children who had once dreamed of exploring the stars now carried rifles to defend their homes. And through it all, whispers spread. Humanity had been named. That was why the Council had come. That was why the galaxy trembled. But what did the name mean? Elias finally found his answer when intelligence officers uncovered fragments of alien records buried in Mars's ruins, old archives the Council thought long destroyed. It told of a war fought millennia ago, a war so brutal the galaxy still bore its scars, a war waged not by countless species, but by one, humanity. They were not newcomers to the stars. They were exiles. Their name had been stricken, their history erased, their very existence hidden. Because once, long ago, they had brought the galaxy to its knees, and now that name had returned. The revelation spread like fire. Soldiers whispered it in trenches, civilians painted it on walls. The Council had not come to contain humanity's rise. They had come to prevent its return. On the Resolute's bridge, Elias stared at the fragments until his hands trembled. He saw battles waged on a scale beyond imagination, fleets falling before human strategy, empires broken beneath human defiance. His grandmother's warnings had not been the fears of an old soldier. They had been echoes of the truth. "We've been here before," Elias whispered. "We fought them once. We nearly broke them, and they buried us to make sure it never happened again." His officers looked to him, silent, waiting. "What do we do?" one asked at last. Elias lifted his eyes, fire burning behind them. "We remind them why they feared us." The plan was madness. Even he admitted it. But desperation breeds brilliance, and humanity had always thrived in desperation. While the Council fleet pressed toward Earth, Elias coordinated a strike not against their ships, but against their command. Using captured transmissions, his intelligence teams decoded fragments of their chain of command. Hidden among their colossal fleet was a flagship, a vessel older than empires, carrying the Council's supreme authority. Destroy it, and the fleet would not vanish, but it would bleed. The Council's perfect machine would stumble. And in that stumble, humanity could strike. The Resolute and a handful of battered warships crept into the void, their drives masked by wreckage fields and decoy signals. Every man and woman aboard knew the truth. They might never return. As the alien armada closed around Earth, Elias whispered a single order. Now! The void erupted. Sabotaged supply freighters hidden in their midst exploded, tearing gaps in Council lines. Human ships surged forward, weaving through the chaos, every weapon they had blazing. The flagship loomed ahead, a colossal shadow bristling with light. Missiles screamed. Plasma fire scorched the dark. Alien weapons tore through human hulls, ripping comrades into nothingness. But still they pressed forward, refusing to break. The Resolute took the lead, its shields collapsing, its hull burning. Elias stood firm on the bridge, staring at the monster before them. And then, impossibly, the flagship staggered. One of its towers ruptured, flame bursting into the void, not destroyed, but wounded. On the comms, alien voices crackled in panic. For the first time since the war began, the Council sounded afraid. Elias's crew erupted in shouts, their voices carrying through the chaos. Humanity had struck. Humanity had bled the giant. But before the cheers faded, sensors screamed. The flagship's weapons turned. Energy surged. The Resolute was locked. Elias tightened his grip on the rail, his voice steady as the storm closed around them. Remember this moment, he told his crew, because today, the galaxy remembers us. And with that, the flagship fired. The Resolute shook as though the universe itself wanted it torn apart. The Council flagship's main cannon unleashed a beam of searing light that ripped through the void, striking shields that had already collapsed. The blast tore through hull plating, splitting corridors open to the stars. Sirens screamed, oxygen vented, bodies were flung into the abyss. Yet the ship did not fall. Elias gripped the railing, smoke stinging his eyes, and refused to bow his head. Around him, his crew scrambled, bloodied, but unbroken. They were dying, and they knew it, but not one abandoned their post. "Engines crippled!" his navigator shouted. "Reactor failing!" cried another. "We can't take another hit, Captain!" Elias heard them, but his gaze never left the towering silhouette of the Council flagship. It loomed like a god forged in steel, wounded but unbowed, its countless weapons already charging for the killing strike. "This is what they fear," Elias whispered, "that even on the edge of annihilation, we fight." He gave the order. "All power to forward batteries. Target their command core." The crew obeyed without hesitation. What else could they do? The Resolute was already burning. If they were to die, they would die with their blades in the enemy's throat. The guns roared. Bolts of plasma and streaks of missiles launched into the void, carving fiery trails toward the flagship's heart. Alien shields shimmered, buckled, and cracked. A tower of steel and light erupted into flame, spinning debris into the dark. For one heartbeat, it looked as though the impossible might be real, that a single human warship might fell the monster. But the flagship endured. Its lights blazed brighter, its weapons glowing with the fury of a sun. Across the void, alien fleets rallied, formations tightening. The trap humanity had sprung was unraveling, and the moment of advantage was slipping through their fingers. "We won't survive the next volley!" shouted the tactical officer. Elias closed his eyes. He could almost hear his grandmother's voice, whispering the words she'd spoken when he was a boy. Humanity is never strongest when it stands tall. Humanity is strongest when it refuses to kneel. "Prepare the Ark Protocol," Elias said. The bridge went still. His officers stared at him, horror dawning in their eyes. The Ark Protocol was no weapon. It was a death sentence, a desperate contingency born in black-budget labs, turning a warship's reactor into a singularity bomb, enough to annihilate anything caught in its grip, including the ship itself. "Captain," his first officer began, voice shaking. Elias met his gaze, calm in the storm. "If that ship survives, Earth falls. If Earth falls, humanity ends. We cannot let them erase us again." Silence hung heavy. Then, one by one, his officers nodded. Not a single voice spoke against him. Humanity's legacy was worth any price. The order was carried out. Deep in the Resolute's heart, safeties were unlocked. Systems groaned as the reactor destabilized, light bleeding across the ship's spine. A countdown appeared across the bridge. 5 minutes until detonation. Elias turned to the comms. "Open a channel. Broadcast to every ship, every colony, every station still listening." A moment later, the galaxy heard his voice. "This is Captain Elias Kalin of Earth. We have bled. We have suffered. But we do not yield. Today, the Council will remember the name they tried to bury. Today, the galaxy will remember why they feared humanity." His voice hardened, every word carved in fire. "They may break our bodies. They may burn our worlds, but they cannot erase our spirit. Because humanity does not bow. Humanity fights." The words spread like fire, carried on every wave of static and broken signal. Across trenches, bunkers, and burning cities, human soldiers lifted their heads. Civilians huddled in shelters gripped one another's hands. Even those who had never seen a battlefield felt it, that old, defiant fire rising in their blood. And for the first time, the Council fleet hesitated. The flagship fired. The blast struck the Resolute head-on. Decks split open, steel screamed, fire consumed compartments. The bridge itself buckled under the impact, consoles exploding, crew thrown to the ground. But the reactor was already primed. Through the fire and smoke, Elias forced himself to stand. His body trembled, blood running down his temple, but his eyes blazed with unyielding fury. He looked out into the void one final time, at the monster that had come to erase his people, and he smiled. "Time's up." The reactor breached. A star was born in the darkness. Light devoured the Resolute, folding space upon itself, a singularity tearing through steel and bone and fire. The explosion consumed the flagship, ripping its heart apart, its colossal frame buckling as though crushed by an invisible hand. For a breathless moment, the void was nothing but light. When it faded, silence reigned. The Resolute was gone. But so was the flagship. The Council fleet staggered, their perfect formation shattered. Their supreme authority, their unbreakable symbol of control, was nothing but wreckage drifting in the abyss. And across the galaxy, from Mars's bunkers to Earth's scorched skies, a single truth resounded. Humanity had not fallen. They had risen. Yet even in the afterglow, dread lingered. Because in the Council's hesitation, in their sudden silence, humanity realized something chilling. If a single human ship could do this, what would happen when the rest of the galaxy remembered who they truly were? The battlefield was silent. Not the silence of peace. No, this was the silence of a galaxy, holding its breath. Ships drifted as wreckage. Flames burned coldly against the backdrop of stars. And at the center of it all, a single human vessel remained intact, its hull battered, its crew bloodied, but its spirit unbroken. Captain Elias stood at the command deck, gazing out at the shattered fleet. His hands shook, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of survival. We did it, he thought. Against every odd, every threat, every impossible decree of inevitability, they had stood, and they had endured. The comms lit up with voices, alien tongues stumbling over words, broken by static, fractured by awe, not challenges, not threats, but pleas. Human, Elias, we surrender. Teach us how you stood against them. Tell us what it means to be unbroken. For the first time, the council, the same council that had once spoken with thunder, declaring humanity insignificant, spoke in whispers. The galaxy's voice had not been stolen by fear. It had been reshaped by respect. Elias closed his eyes. He remembered Earth, not as a concept, not as a symbol of terror, but as his mother's voice humming on a porch in summer, as children running through fields, as laughter echoing in streets, still scarred from wars they had once thought final. That was Earth's real name. Not terror, not fear, endurance, defiance, hope. The crew around him sat in stunned quiet, many crying, others laughing through the exhaustion. Sergeant Alvarez leaned back, broken arm cradled to his chest, and whispered, "Captain, we didn't just win. We reminded them what it means to fight for something worth more than survival." Outside, the surviving alien fleets began withdrawing, not in retreat, but in reverence. Some broadcast signals of mourning for their dead. Others sent fragments of ancient songs, as if trying to find common ground in grief. Humanity had not merely defeated an empire. They had forced the galaxy to look inward and ask why one fragile species could defy inevitability when countless others had bowed. The answer was not in their weapons, nor in their numbers. It was in the human spirit. Elias finally spoke, his voice hoarse but carrying weight across every frequency. "We are humanity. We are small, but we endure. We bleed, but we rise. If you wish to know what makes us strong, look to our dead and see how fiercely we live for them." His words rippled outward, carried through systems, translated into hundreds of tongues, and slowly, like dawn creeping over a wounded world, the silence of fear gave way to murmurs of something new. Not terror, not awe, but respect. Generations later, they would tell the story differently. They would say that when the Council discovered Earth's true name, it was not terror that stole the galaxy's voice, but hope. Hope that in the endless dark, there existed a species so stubborn, so impossibly alive, that even the void itself could not silence them.